Hi, I'm Christopher Walker with Closely Observed Teaching, and I'm joined here today with Glenn Standish of International House Torun. Glenn, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you too, Christopher. Thank you for having me again.
Yeah, no problem. It's always a pleasure. So, Glenn, we've now had about a month of teaching online because of the current situation, let's call it.
It's gone very
So,
quickly.
yeah, hasn't it? Just
Flown by,
it's
hasn't it? Yes.
yes, exactly. Although looking out the window, it's snowing again, so we're back in winter. So,
Is it really? Blue
yeah, we
skies up
had a
here
bit
at
of a
Doran.
flurry. Yeah, it's
Wow.
amazing. I thought it was the blossom blowing off the trees at first, but no, the actual snow. So we're going to talk a bit about the last month and the move to online teaching. And we can start by looking at the beginning, how all of this started. So the government was pretty quick. They said that they were going to have this lockdown, that the schools were going to close, and we were given, what was it, 4 or 5 days notice, maybe less than that in terms of working time, because there was a weekend involved as well. So what were your experiences? How did you and your school manage
Well,
the move, and what was it like?
the week that we actually found out was probably the busiest week of my life anyway, because it was actually going to be the weekend where we had the International House Teacher Training Day. That
Yes.
was scheduled for Saturday the 14th, and due to the whole crisis, sadly, we've had to postpone it till November. So we were in the middle of trying to think whether we should keep it or not, and we were like holding off, and then we found out that, you know, groups were being cancelled, but over a certain number. We just thought,
Yeah.
oh no, there's no way we can continue with that. We were also being inspected by the time. All
Yeah.
international health schools are inspected every 2 or 3 years. We were actually having an online inspection. We were dealing with that. And I remember I was actually being interviewed by the inspector just about sort of general stuff at school. And the director of the school came into my room and basically said, tomorrow we will be closed. So I was trying to juggle with, sorting out postponing the train day, dealing with an online inspection, and then obviously trying to think about what on earth to do now. So we actually closed the school on the Thursday. We cancelled all classes and we dedicated that entire day, and also on the following Friday as well, to basically training up the teachers. And the very first training session was we had all the teachers at home and we actually showed them how to use Zoom online when they were at home. So they did that. Then they came in and started planning together, got all their resources. And we actually had the very first online class on the Friday. So we were very, very quick. That was just one class. It was an FC class. And the teacher was actually teaching online from the school. And some of the other FC teachers actually sat in the room and watched how she did it, just to get an idea. We put like barriers so she couldn't actually have eye contact with teachers because, I think obviously it was quite a stressful experience. First time teaching online and being observed by like an army of about 5 or 6 of your peers.
Yeah.
And then on the Monday, that was it. We went straight into online teaching. We started with our false beginner YL group going up to CPE. Then we gradually rolled it out to even, our play school students eventually after a couple of weeks,
Hmm.
and one-to-one and small closed groups. So yeah, I would say that we actually did it very quickly. Within 24 hours, we had our first online lesson.
Yeah, I think we were lucky at our school. It's International House Bielsko Biała, in that we already had online lessons coming down the pipeline. And at the start of the school year, Nick Zalazek, one of the teachers at the school, who's kind of our computer coordinator, ran a very good session on using Zoom. So we all got to play around with it. I did some experimentation myself with Zoom and other online platforms as part of the IH Cult that I was doing at the time as well. So that's proved particularly useful. When we were given the news that the school was going to close, I think we were closed we had Thursday and the Friday that were basically closed. We had a day's notice essentially. And I know I did, and I know some of the other teachers did the same thing, which was to show the students what it was going to look like. So we told them to get the Zoom app on their phones for a start. And then we brought up Zoom on the whiteboard if we had one, if we had the computer set up in the room, so we could show the students, look, this is what it's going to be like. It's not going to be so bad. And a lot of the students were already quite enthusiastic about this. They knew that the lockdown was coming, that they were going to be losing school time. And suddenly here we were presenting them with something that was going to get around a lot of the issues. And I think that both of our schools were able to get up and running so much faster than any of the state schools. I look at my daughter's primary school. It's a very good school, but they're still at the stage of just sending material out by
Yeah.
email, telling the students these are the pages you have to do, and then it's become the parents' job to teach everything.
And
Which
the
is
parents become like, like a teacher. And they've
exactly.
already got 101 things to do at the best of times anyway. So
yeah.
it's
Yeah,
very
I mean, they might be working from home as well. So I think that we were in the fortunate position of basically doing everything right and quickly. Some of the other decisions that the school took, Ella, the DOS, alongside the school admin team, they decided that for the first week, we would reduce the length of the classes to 50%. And I think that was a key decision, because the first class that you have is basically a training class for the students. The teachers are it's the old proverbial thing of when communism ended in Poland, all the Russian teachers became English teachers, and they were only ever one lesson ahead of their students. Well, that was kind of where we were with our lessons, in that we knew a bit more about Zoom than they did, and it was now our job to kind of educate them on how to use the platform.
Yeah. And the first lesson was very much a training session for,
it was, yes.
for students. But we had a lot of positive feedback from the students saying how impressed they were, how quick and how swift we were to suddenly adapt to online lessons. And the transition period was pretty smooth.
Yes.
And we did have a lot of positive feedback. And I've asked students as well, for their feedback, several weeks down the line, and the feedback is still very positive. They do like online lessons. Of course, some do miss face-to-face. It's very much their possibility to go and meet their new friends and mingle with them, which they can't really do online per se, but they still like it.
Yeah, I think one of the critical things for us is that this happened in the middle of the school year and not at the start. So you already have these pre-existing relationships between the students. One of the things that I've been doing is that I open the meeting as early as possible before the lesson, and turn off the microphone, turn off the webcam, and then allow the students to come into the room. I'll have a shared whiteboard open. They can say hello to each other, and they can draw little pictures and everything. And this seems to help them kind of get over the whole tech barrier a little bit. They feel more connected to their peers. That seems to be working well. But if we'd started this at the start of the school year, and you had to try and build rapport between the students and between the students and the teacher, I think we might be talking about something slightly different here.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. So let's talk about some of the challenges first of all. And what are the problems that you've faced so far that you think have been important or have had a bit of an impact?
I think on a regular basis, it's just the technical issues when it comes to Zoom. Or indeed any online platform. And it's not just about the actual platform itself, it's more to do with the internet connection. You can't do anything about what the internet connection is like at the student's home.
Yeah.
They might be on, I don't think they're on some dial-up, but they might be on quite, weak, they might have weak internet connection, and there's not much you can do about that. Also, they might be on, they might have no camera or no microphone, or issues with microphones, issues with the fact they're on a laptop or phone. There's lots of things like that. So on a regular basis, I mean, we've set up and I'm sure you've done the same, our little Facebook group for teachers to literally every time there's some issue, they message on the chat, and the admin staff, the management staff, like myself, we can have a look and see if we can try to deal with the problem remotely. And most of the time it's like, so and so, gosh, I can't see us, or her microphone's not working, or she's stuck in the waiting room, she can't come in. And these are all just technical issues. We've told teachers now to wait for at least 5 to 10 minutes, because often these technical issues actually resolve themselves.
They do. Yeah.
And if they keep going, focusing on this, there's a habit that tendency they're not focusing on the rest of the class.
Yeah.
And really, you should be focusing on most of the class and not worry about that one student who's got the technical issues. I know that sounds horrible, but there's a real tendency to focus just on that one student and forget about the rest of the class. And it could disrupt the flow of the lesson.
Absolutely.
Which is why, you have to, yes, obviously do report it to us so we're fully aware of the situation, but often just be patient and wait, because they will resolve themselves.
That's very true. I think that one of the problems that we're all facing here is one of the problems built into the very nature of the platform that we're using. We're both using Zoom at our schools. And I kind of imagined 6 months ago, the team at Zoom being like, oh, do you think we need to localize the software? Do you think we need to offer the interface in different languages? And they were like, nah, I don't think so. We've only got a couple of thousand customers at the moment. Let's wait until it grows. And then overnight, they went from a few thousand perhaps to a few million clients, everyone downloading this Zoom app. And suddenly all the promises that they'd made about end-to-end encryption that they'd said, and actually it turns out they didn't have it, and now they're scrambling to put these security features in, they must be overloaded. But having to diagnose problems with people whose first language is not English and who might not have somebody available who can then diagnose the problem. Like if you've got a kids class and they don't know how to write on the screen, you have to think how to explain it to somebody who might also not know English, like in the case of the parents. Yes. So you have to try and talk them through these things, but you're doing it blind. You're doing it where you don't know if they're on a PC or a Mac. You don't know if they're on a laptop, a tablet, or a phone. It's different in every situation. And I think that's one of the real problems. Coming on to the next point, the most difficult aspects for learners and teachers. One for me that's been really difficult is, it's actually, I've half solved it, but I've not solved it all the way, which was the idea of getting students to work on projects together. I mean, this is the kind of glue that held some of my classes together, was doing projects. One way I kind of got around it was to create Google documents with a template that the students would fill in with information. So we did a great project recently. Yes. The project we did recently on endangered wildlife was a fantastic project, one of the best lessons I had. However, it very nearly didn't happen, because to really use Google Docs, you need people on laptops. You can do it on a phone, but you try writing an essay on a phone with the little pop-up keyboard. It's horrible. You can do it on a tablet. Again, it's not ideal. So I had a class of 9 students, and fortunately 3 of them joined the lesson on a laptop. So I was able to use 3 breakout rooms, 3 teams of 3, and it worked. But if one of those students had been away, if I'd had 8 students with 2 on laptops, or even 8 with 1 on laptop, it's not going to happen. So you can't.
That's you thinking on your feet as well. I mean, a teacher does need to think on their feet sometimes and adapt to the situation, because obviously you don't know how many students are going to rock up.
Well, yeah, there's partly that, but it's a little bit like if you imagine in a face-to-face classroom, if you'd planned to do something that required pens, and then in a face-to-face classroom, some of the students turn up and say, I'm sorry, I don't have pens, I can't write with anything. That's fine, you give them the pen. But imagine the same situation where they rock up and you say, right, you're going to need a pen. And then the students say, forget a pen, I don't even have hands. I mean, you can't kind of think on your feet there. No. They're not going to be able to do it. So you're going to have to just do something else.
So you're very lucky then.
I was lucky in that case, but there are other aspects of the same thing. For example, if you've got a student on a laptop, they can type. If you've got a student on a phone, they can't when you've got a whiteboard. And what that means is that if you're playing a spelling race or anything like that, who's going to win? Oh, click, 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 finished. Of course. And the first person's still writing the first letter.
Yeah. Which is why then you could put them into breakout rooms together, the one who's on a mobile with one who's on a laptop, and they work together, and then they can type in the answers, input it into a Google Doc link.
Well, for example, but then we come back to the same problem. I've got classes where all of the students are on mobile or laptop, mobile or tablet. So then it's fine, because with the race, they're all in the same position. It's just difficult that the different means by which you connect bring with them their own strengths and weaknesses, and you don't have a level playing field. So I did a session at the start of the school year where we looked at the idea of every classroom having mixed abilities. Now we've got mixed abilities and mixed means, so it adds an extra layer of complication. So that's been a difficult aspect in terms of balancing the lessons. But what about the teachers? Because I'm finding it difficult to maintain focus for as long as I have to, wearing these for 7 hours
Yeah,
and
I mean, I normally have
looking.
these mobile earphones as well, purely because I think they're quite good for noise reduction. But
Yeah.
they're quite uncomfortable, and
Yeah.
wearing
Oh,
them
yeah.
in the ear. That's why today, hopefully, you can hear me okay. I'm
Yeah.
actually using the laptop inbuilt microphone.
Yeah.
Although we recommend teachers not to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, and also the other thing is, it is incredibly tiring and mentally draining doing all these online lessons back to back.
Yes. Yes.
You do. I tell teachers, we only have 15-minute break in between lessons. I tell them, try and just get off the laptop in those 15 minutes, make yourself a cup of coffee, go on the balcony, get some fresh air, and come back, because you just sat here all the time.
Yeah.
Also, with planning and stuff, it can really, it's not good for your eyes, and it can be really, really draining.
It's not.
And it is a little bit more teacher-centered, so you are a little bit more in demand. It's more focus from you as the teacher, and it's hard work. So I can see why you have reduced your lessons a little bit. We generally, our lessons are still 90 minutes, but we've some of the VYO classes they were reduced.
Well, with my 8, 9, 10-year-olds, instead of 90 minutes, we're doing 75, and I think that's right. But for every other class, it's 90, and I've got some one-to-ones that run for 90 minutes. And I mean, it's such a difference when you're in the classroom. You've got a 180-degree field of view, really, and you can turn your head and expand that. Whereas with online teaching, it's now limited to the size of your monitor. And when you're looking at the students, you're limited to the size of the little window. So your world is shrinking. And because it's shrinking, your eyes are focusing harder and harder. I wake up in the mornings with eye strain. That's even before I've started teaching now.
And also being a manager, academic manager, I'm finding it quite difficult to manage the time. And never, time management can be an issue with any job, but it never used to really be an issue for me. But I'm finding it difficult to know when to switch off metaphorically.
Yeah.
Because I'm doing so much. Even today, it's my day off. It's a holiday still here in Poland, but I'm very much still doing a lot of work behind the scenes for the school. So it's very difficult to switch off and know when to relax, because you're working from home. And I think that is an issue that's affecting not just managers, but everybody who's working online, really. It's just trying to find out when you can relax and when not to relax.
Absolutely.
Another problem that some students and teachers face as well is when students don't have their cameras on. And it's either because they don't have a camera or they don't want to have their camera on. We had a couple of cases early on in our online teaching where some students would come on with their cameras and half the class didn't, and then the others saw that their friends didn't have their cameras, so they then switched their cameras on. And when the teacher went to ask them, "Can you turn it back on?" they're like, "Nope." So we've got around. I mean, obviously we can't force them to have their cameras on, but we did contact the parents and explain why, what the benefits of having the cameras on. Because to be honest, if you're a teacher and you've got these 12 grey rectangles, it can be a bit off-putting and very difficult to focus, because you don't know how that student is responding. It's almost like teaching to a brick wall.
Or delivering a lesson over the phone. I hate phone calls. One of the reasons I hate phone calls is because I don't know when I'm able to speak without necessarily interrupting my partner. You don't get the visual cue. And I like having the picture here, certainly. However, I can see one other side to this, which is that right now, everybody's rushed out and everyone's doing these online lessons as best they can. And the government is a few months behind us. They're kind of like, oh, just go and do what you want. It's fine. But let's not forget that in Poland, we've got RODO, wider EU, we've got GDPR. And it's just a matter of time now before somebody says, hey, wait a minute, if a student has their webcam on, that's a breach of privacy, because you can now see their home environment.
Absolutely.
And we can say to the students, okay, try to set up your camera or something so that we can only see the blank wall behind you. but they might simply say, oh, well, I can't do that. There's something of me everywhere in the room. And then eventually the government will step in and say, look, you can't have these lessons like this. This is already the case in some states in the US, I've been reading about, where they're not even trying online teaching because of privacy regulations in that particular state. I think Nevada was one, where it's not even an option. The students can't do it. The
But I
teachers
think
can't offer it.
because of this nature, the situation we're in right now, I'm sure the government will find some sort of loophole or something.
Oh, of course. I think the easiest thing is just to not think about it.
Yeah.
If you don't think about it, if you say, well, look, we haven't got time to think about it, then it won't come to anything. But if this becomes the new normal, I'm sure it won't exactly, but you never know. There could be there could be a rebound or something like that. We're still some months off getting a vaccine.
Don't tempt fate.
You said the same thing to me about Brexit, about it not going to happen and all of this, but
Really?
I think you might have done. Yeah, it was either
probably
you or
over-
Sean Wilden.
That was probably over a beer or something. You know.
It might have been. I remember when I did an online conference with IH World back in May time or something, talking about how Brexit was going to impact this. And I remember one comment coming up saying it's not going to happen, don't worry about it. And I was like, I'm too much of a pessimist. Either that or I've experienced too much
and
of
I'm
the
an
world.
optimist. So
yeah,
we're a right pair. It's like talking to
we are. Yeah. Okay, so enough about the gripes and the groans.
Yeah.
Let's think about the successes, because there have been some. There have been
Absolutely.
some real successes. You've got a couple to share.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, even my last lesson was a great lesson. Just like you said, you know, you had one of your best lessons ever. I feel the same with my advanced class last week. We actually did a lesson on poetry. And what I did was I actually showed 3 different poems, all connected with either the lockdown or, you know, coronavirus. So it was something which was very topical and they could relate to. I think the first one I showed was the brilliant poem by Michael Rosen called "These Are the Hands." I don't even know it, but it's basically about the NHS, which obviously is very topical. For those of you who don't know, it's National Health Service in the UK. So it was a very topical one. And then the other one was by Brian Bilsden, who did the poem about keeping social distance from people. And then the other one I showed was actually by an 8-year-old boy, a British boy, who wrote a fantastic poem about basically being stuck at home with his mum. Yeah. And so I showed those, and then obviously then they read them, we looked at them, we analyzed them, they went off into breakout rooms, discussed what they thought about them. And those 3 poems actually inspired them to go off and then create their own poems about the current situation. And so they went off into breakout rooms in twos, and they spent over 20 minutes together, really working together, creating amazing poems, which I've actually gone and shared. So if anybody wants to have a look, they're on the International House Tour on Facebook page. They're also on my own Facebook page as well. And so I'm really proud of it. So that was something we did online. And again, had a very great, really great productive value there. And also recently one of my teachers, Nicola, she did an amazing thing where she actually got her students to, she actually cooked online. So basically she had a laptop in the kitchen and she was cooking a stir fry, putting all the ingredients together, very clearly explained to the students what was happening, and they were listening and they were writing it down. Okay, so it was almost like a virtual dictogloss or with realia, and it was great. And so then they wrote down the recipes, the instructions. Then they had to go off into breakout rooms and create their own recipes, and then they gave those recipes to Nicola, who then went and cooked the meals as well. So it's this is again this is what I love. It's about making English real. It had a real physical output. Yeah, great.
I can just imagine a frustrated teacher back in the UK trying to do the same sort of thing, and they get a list, like a recipe from one of their students, and ingredient number 1, flour, and they just go, because nobody can get flour in the UK at the moment.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think these are great because we're going through one of the most difficult periods in modern history. I think that's clear to everybody. It's unusual, it's freakish, and it is severely difficult. And yet, through these sort of lessons, I can imagine your students coming out the other end, and they'll have some positive memories. They'll be like, oh, do you remember the time that our teacher taught us how to cook through the internet? And it will be, soon it will be a kind of nostalgic memory for them. That's what we want. I mean, it's the sort of wondrous thing. I love the poetry idea. So yeah, anyone listening or watching this video, please go and check out the Facebook page for International House Torrun. I think that's great. On my side, in terms of the success stories, there are certain things that I'd always wanted to do in the face-to-face classroom that never really worked, but work a treat online. And that's group reading. So with my proficiency class, or even with my one-to-one students, I'll find a nice authentic text and we'll look at maybe just a paragraph, and I'll get them to read it and then talk about what they understand of it. And then using the annotate feature on Zoom, I can ask them to highlight the glue of the paragraph. How does it stitch together? Right, you highlight it. Or then we'll look at the vocabulary. I'll be like, okay, choose 3 or 4 interesting words and highlight it in your choice of color, and we'll look at it together. And then whilst we're looking at it, why don't we skip off to a dictionary website or the etymology website, and we'll tie all these things together. They would not have worked as well in the classroom, simply because the teacher would have been the one with the computer. It might have been projected up onto the board, but the students would have been sat in their place, and there would have been no interactivity. There would have been no kind of student ownership of the task. So that's been a big success.
There's so much you can do.
Yeah.
I honestly don't think there are really any limitations. You just have to be creative, and things that you do in a real lesson, in a face-to-face lesson, you can just adapt and do it online. You really can.
Yeah. I think there might be limits when it comes to younger learners, because there's so much tactile stuff that we do in the lessons.
Yeah.
So there are limits there. And when you think about our lessons and how much we want to concentrate on building fine motor skill elements as well, like, handling scissors and cutting things out and doing that sort of gluing sort of project as part of your lesson, I've not found a way to transfer it across seamlessly, but maybe it will come.
One challenge we faced is how to do testing or continuous assessment online.
Yeah.
I think I've found the answer solution to that using a website called exam.net.
Yes, we'll be looking at that as well.
You're going to be doing that. It's a Swedish website, and it's a great website where you can actually do online testing in as controlled environment as possible.
Yeah.
And for example, the teacher will know if the student has actually left the computer or moved to a different website or had something like that, because then you say, well, you can accuse, oh no, this student has cheated.
Yeah.
So, and you can even do listening as well. So as you know, I've prepared a whole guide to that. So please have a look at the guide on how to use exam.net in the ELT classroom.
Yeah. And mentioning this resource that you've prepared, I would say this is another one of the success stories, is that there are people in this whole world of English language teaching who have been very quick to offer help and advice and resources to their peers, either through blog posts or through ebooks or YouTube videos, everything like that. I know that, who is it in Bydgoszcz?
Sandy Millen.
That's the one, Sandy Millen. She's prepared a lot of material that's well worth a look as well. She's linked to a lot as well through her blog and through social media. So there's a lot out there. And that whole thing actually brings me to our final point, which is what the last month has taught you. And I'd like to start things off by saying that it's not something that I've been taught in the last month, but it's something that I've been reminded of. And that is just the quality of the people that we're surrounded by in our profession. I've not heard any kind of querulous or dissenting voices amongst the staff. Everybody has pulled together in like the biggest way. Everyone is supportive of one another. They do their job to the best of their abilities, and they try to help each other do the same. And that's definitely been the case in my school, and I gather in your school as well.
Yeah, I mean, we're grateful, we're thankful for the fact that we are both working for International House, and International House is a part of a network, and it's times like this where the network really works very well together.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm part of the DOS group, and we have a DOS Google group, and honestly, you know, directors of studies DOSes around the world are helping each other. So no, it's great to be a part of that. You know, I kind of feel like sorry for those schools, those private language schools who don't have that support network out there to help them. And this is why I do like to go off and help these sort of schools with some ideas and giving them some tips and stuff. Definitely. But I think one of the key things as well, what I've learned this last month, is just basically as flexible and adaptable as possible. And just go with the flow, and just adapt with the times. And yeah, I'm just amazed at how quickly we managed to adapt, really, to be honest. I can't believe we are now in our 2nd month of online teaching. Those 5 weeks has gone really quickly. Absolutely blown away. Yeah.
I feel almost like somebody who's just become a touch typist.
Yes.
And that, like, when you first start typing, your eyes are on the keyboard. You have to use maybe 2 fingers, and you're thinking, okay, I press that letter and it's come up now. I press this letter, it comes up now. And that's how it felt when I was doing screen sharing and sending people to breakout rooms and everything like that. And now it's like, as I'm talking to the students about a task, I'm setting up the breakout room ready with maybe a time limit, maybe changing the pairs so that they're different, thinking, okay, who's on a laptop and who's on a mobile device, I'm going to put them together. And then I say, okay, I'm going to send you to your breakout rooms. Click, and they've gone. And whilst they've gone, then I start setting up the next thing, and it's all kind of fitting seamlessly together in the way that I would like it to in a face-to-face classroom. So
but you do have to juggle a lot of things.
You do.
Because I was actually the quiz master at the IH lockdown quiz last week. It was fantastic. We actually ran it twice, and it was great. There was staff from all around the world, from different international house schools joining us. But it was very much like, yes, I mean, I was the quiz master, but I was juggling with I had these different screens open. Obviously, I had to have one window ready with the guess the music round. I had another one with picture round, and I had all these things, and it was very, you know, trying to juggle that together with Zoom at the same time was quite a challenge, but it was an enjoyable challenge.
Yeah, we're getting to become master plate spinners, aren't we?
We are, yes.
Wonderful. Okay, so Glenn, I think we've covered most of the things that we wanted to talk about for this little chat. Thank you so much again for joining me. It's been a real pleasure talking about all of this. It's nice sometimes to take a moment and reflect on where we've come from and where we are now, to put things into a wider perspective. I think that's a very useful thing that we can do. And thank goodness we've got Zoom. I mean, we've met more times now on Zoom than we have face-to-face.
I think so. Yes. We've only met once face-to-face.
Exactly. Yeah.
But there will be another time very soon.
There will. Tell us about that again.
Okay, so basically it's our annual IH Tour and Teacher Training Day. It was meant to happen on the 14th of March. Sadly, it's been postponed now to 7th of November, and our key speaker will be Scott Thornbury. Okay, so please come.
Wonderful. So yes, I look forward to seeing you there, and hopefully we'll be making another video before that time. So until the next time, thank you once again, Glenn. It's been a real pleasure, and I shall stop recording.